And welcome, everybody. My name is Abe Bonowitz with Death Penalty Action, and we're joined by a number of folks from the various states that are looking at executions this month. And this is our monthly program, The Forecast, where we look at the upcoming executions. Normally on the first Sunday of each month, sometimes we push it back a little bit just so that we can have make sure if there's any executions that are in the first week. But in any case, we've got a number of guests here. Welcome everybody there with Charles and everybody in the audience. I want to invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat and say where you're watching from, and that's where you can put questions and that sort of thing. We do have 6 executions in March, which means we've got a lot to get through. We don't limit this to an hour, but we don't want to go too much beyond an hour, 15 hour, 20 minutes. So we're always just inviting people to be concise. I also want to say that Death Penalty Action is pleased to provide this platform. Anybody that is speaking who is not on staff or board of Death Penalty Action is speaking for themselves. So, but we invite all opinions and approaches to this. Also, if there's anybody that decides to be disruptive in the chat or on any of the feeds, then on the social media streams, then you've been warned. We will remove you without warning. That's typically not an issue for this. Sometimes comes up during the virtual vigils. We're going to go then to Louisiana, and I want to welcome and invite Michael Cahoon, who's with Justice's Promise. .org. Is that right, Michael? Maybe you can.
Oh, Promise of Justice Initiative.
Thank you. It's we haven't really done anything in Louisiana because you haven't had an execution in 15 years, but here we go. So everybody, welcome Michael Cahoon to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Louisiana and how we can help.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Abe, and thanks, everybody. So yes, as Abe mentioned, in Louisiana, we have not had an execution since 2010, January 2010, and so this upcoming execution scheduled for March 18th of Mr. Jesse Hoffman will be the first execution in Louisiana in 15 years if it goes ahead. And so right now, in terms of campaigning and communications and things, we're looking at basically 3 different issues that we're raising up. One is Mr. Hoffman, Jesse's case itself, his history of trauma, his social history. There was just a pretty good article in the New Orleans Times-Picayune summarizing some of the social history of Jesse. He has a very involved family. He's very close and respected by people on death row. And he has a legal team that has worked with him for a long, long time. So in terms of the communication on that and the organizing around that, I think Death Penalty Action has a petition specific to him. Um, and so that's one area we're concentrating. The other is this is the resumption of executions after a 15-year gap. So we have a lot of action and advocacy around our governor and our attorney general choosing to sort of go out of their way to resume executions in Louisiana. And so this was all set in motion uh, last year during what they called a special session on crime as a special legislative session where they passed a secrecy law that we've seen in many states around lethal injection. Our governor tried to pass a similar law back when he was Attorney General 5 years ago. We were able to defeat the bill that time, but when he brought it back as governor this year with a supermajority advantage in both chambers of our legislature, he was able to pass it. Um, and so it was the secrecy, and then we had the addition of additional methods, the electric chair, and nitrogen gassing. And so that brings us to sort of the third leg of our stool of advocacy that we're pushing, which is around not only the resumption of executions and the execution of Jesse Hoffman, but the state has said that they're going to use nitrogen gas as their method. And so we've been building a lot of coalitions and advocacy around gassing and the issues with that, the historic traumas associated with that. I know Brandy's on this call. She might be able to speak to some of that work. But those are really the three areas. You know, the petitions available from Death Penalty Action. We also have a one-click that I'll share that is just to send an email directly to the governor. So it's not collecting a signatures. It's just sort of an action to send. And it's not about the case specifically. It's about resuming executions and the issues around gassing. Um, and then I'll just mention, because it sort of highlights, I mean, I think a lot of folks would know the absurdities of the death penalty and the cruelty of it. We were actually supposed to have two executions in March. We were supposed to have one on March 17th and then 18th. And the person scheduled for March 17th, Mr. Chris Sepulvedo, was 81 years old. He was in a wheelchair. He was had COPD and was on oxygen. They were actually going to, remove his oxygen and then gas him. And he was so sick and ill that between the issuing of his execution warrant and the 30 days in Louisiana between the issuing of the warrant and the scheduled execution, he passed away in the hospital. So they were rushing to execute so much that they basically tried to execute and really tried to treat into prolonging the life of somebody so they could execute him. But he passed away 2 weeks ago. And there's been lots of media about that. His spiritual advisor has written very many beautiful things, as well as his attorneys. So thank you all. That's just sort of the general update on Louisiana.
Sure. Michael, I thought I had read that he had been returned to the prison and then died over the weekend, last week. And by the way, I'm sharing a picture of Jesse Hoffman here just so people can see what he looks like. And this is from that article. I put a link in the chat for you. So in any case, just it's interesting how things get reported and different perspectives are put out there. So, well, Michael, we're grateful for you. We're happy to be working with you. There's a rally coming up on the 15th, right? Do you want to share anything about that?
Well, we're actually still very much working with the details of that, but yes, right now we're hoping for March 15th to be a some sort of rally. It's also visitation day at Angola Prison, so we have to really schedule around that because we want to make sure not to be too disruptive of people's visitation process. So we're scheduling around it, but Abe, I'll make sure to send you details as soon as we have that finalized.
Super. We've got them there, and also hopefully folks are making use of the signs and the shirts and everything that we sent down there. So we're just grateful to be in collaboration with you. I wanted to bring in Brandy, Melissa here, and ask. So Brandy has been a friend and somebody that's been following us since last year when all this lethal gas suffocation stuff came up, and she's really kind of tuned in to what's happening politically in Louisiana. So I wanted to ask her to share a little bit of further background about Louisiana and what's happening. So Brandy, welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you. In a state that is strongly Catholic, pro-life, supposed to stand with the Jewish community, as well as has made headlines recently for defending the Ten Commandments, which the sixth one is "Thou shalt not kill," mind you. You wouldn't think that the day would ever come that, excuse me, the day would ever come where gas suffocation would be scheduled. The first experiment is being done on someone who is Black that is married to a Jew. Everyone knows the racist history of Louisiana. Most of the area around Angola is filled with plantations, traveling up and down Highway 61, which is the highway you're staying on when you turn left onto the road that is the very long road that goes to Angola. Cringe with their minds, going back to what likely went on in those places. I know I do, and I try to stay away from that area because of that. The electric chair that inspired the well-known Dead Man Walking is in the prison museum. Like Michael said, the last execution in Louisiana was 2010 because Gerald Bordelon was tired of waiting. But before that, the last state-sanctioned execution in Louisiana was 2002. All by lethal injection. Why that matters shortly. As Attorney General, promises were made that once the AG became governor, death row would be cleared out. Wealthy donors became tight friends of all the powerful because someone whose death sentence was vacated by a federal judge was going to be among the first, if not the first to die when things were finalized to resume executions in Louisiana. No one has appealed for the death sentence to be reinstated. So the poster child for expansion methods can't be touched when executions resume until that plays out in court. And that's not going to happen anytime soon. There are a few others who have exhausted their appeals and will be collateral damage of this vile administration. No supply of nitrogen in Louisiana. We give it to this administration because they didn't want to use in a manner being obtained by the powers that be. So the powers that be made backdoor deals, shenanigans with out of state, heaven knows who to get what is wanted for the purpose of clearing the road. Can you really swallow the nightmare Alabama started in America, on American soil, when they began using gas suffocation as execution method? Louisiana wasted no time. A month later, getting it added to execution methods. On February 10th, the nitrogen hypoxia protocol was released by the governor, and moments later, death warrants were signed for executions back to back. I'm glad the 81-year-old, already in poor health, went on his own before this torture. From what articles have said, he was also blind, deaf and blind and stuff like that. Back to lethal injection. It was also used heavily by the Nazis to get rid of those with disabilities and others who didn't fit the mold of having a worthy to live existence. Who is considering the unnecessary lifelong trauma gas suffocation executions will cause those forced to carry it out? Angola is a family staff who are gonna have to end lives, have built relationships with the inmates they will assist in the death of. Even the vilest criminal doesn't need to be put to death with barbaric methods Hitler used to exterminate Jews and those unable to defend themselves. Everyone who signed off on nitrogen being added to execution methods in Louisiana by choice or threats from the administration should be forced to witness the nightmare carried out on March 18th. You can support the death penalty and have a problem with methods used to kill Jews and the unfit being used to end lives on American soil, even in states who claim to be pro-life supporters of Israel and the Ten Commandments, as is the case in Louisiana. And I've even had the legislator who is the chair of criminal justice acknowledge that I have been against this from minute one because of what happened years ago. And what people don't realize is history repeats itself. Now it's being used to kill death row inmates. Down the road, it could be any of us for any reason. And people don't think about that. And I haven't had much of a dry eye since February 10th because I can't comprehend how gassing someone to death is being done on American soil, much less 59 miles away from my apartment. I just can't. And this governor and the AG have been quoted recently saying Louisiana has the death penalty and we're going to use it. And like I said, the poster child for this happening can't be touched. So everybody else is being collateral damage.
Well, thank you, Brandy, for bringing us that. And I know it's difficult for you, and you've got some personal connections with some of these cases. And actually came into this as being pro death penalty.
Yep,
And, you know, and, and,
100%.
and now,
Because I know a few of the inmates on death row. One of them killed a cop that saved my life, risked her life to save mine in the morning of Hurricane Andrew. And before this nitrogen stuff started, I didn't care how he took his last breath. If I could go blow his head off myself, I probably would. But I just thank you for everything you've done and all the stuff that has happened to wake me up about this.
well, thank you for sharing, and also sharing, as you have with me, the shifts that you've had over the last year around this. So we're grateful. Michael, also thank you for your time, and we'll be seeing you all in Louisiana in a few weeks. Um, as I like to say, I don't want to go, but we're going to go. We're going to see you, and we're going to stand with you in opposition to this. And with that, I want to just go around and give everybody a chance to give a final word and call to action. We'll start with you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm putting in the Zoom chat here our main call to action, which is calling the governor, calling the attorney general, but also using this one click. You know, March 17th is still a ways away, so or March 18th, sorry. So we are doing all we can to try to encourage the governor not to restart executions. Thank you all.
All right.
Michael, I had a quick question. I realize we're giving little closing statements, but I had a quick question for either Brandy or Michael. It looks like that Jesse Hoffman is the only person eligible for execution in Louisiana at this point. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that
But
hasn't
Sister
stopped
Helen
some.
said there's 14 eligible throughout the year.
Yeah, the DAs have gone and sought some warrants for people that aren't eligible, but the judge has rescinded those. So they'll try, but he's the only one.
Okay. Thank you.
Well,
All righty. Who's next? Brandy, you wanted to say something?
yeah, Jeff, don't give up on what you're doing. Um, right when Kenny Smith was gassed to death, I can't believe I'm even saying that happens on American soil right now. But a media friend of mine here asked me if I knew anything or seen anything about it online yet. And comes to find out when I Googled everything, the press conference that you were doing on Abe's page came up and stuff you were saying really played a role on top of um the video that Candace Usman did with Sister Helen talking about lethal injections and stuff. I didn't realize all that happened. But don't give up because trust me on this issue. Anybody can tell you I was a tough brick to crack because Derek Todd Lee, I'm one of the few that survived encounters with him. He was on death row here. But like I've told everybody, I wouldn't be okay with my dad, who left my mom to die in front of me when I was 6, or Todd Michael Duquette, who sodomized my brothers when they were kids, being gassed to death. And like I said, I cannot believe that it's number one happening on American soil when the day before the committee voted against removing nitrogen and hypoxia from execution methods here, legislators and everybody held a stand with Israel stuff on the steps of the state capitol. The very next day, I sat in between two Jews. And if you go watch that, I put my head down because I couldn't, it was, and the legislators were very dismissive, saying it was no comparison when really it is. And when I got back to my seat, two more spoke, and I literally had to walk out of the committee room. But there was a time before gas suffocations became the norm, or was even a thought in this state. You know, Louisiana's rivals with Alabama with football, and this is not an issue we need to be like them at all. But please don't give up or don't stop what you're doing, you either, Abe, because both of y'all have played a major role in how I feel about everything now.
Thank you, Brandy. I just want to say, and this isn't to correct you or anything, but people often say Abe's page, it's death penalty action. I'm just a vehicle for this, but it is there's a lot of people behind the scenes and standing with us, and we're all together in it. So it's not me, it's us. Allie, last thoughts?
I don't really know that I have much to say. It's a really insane time that we're all in. Oh, where'd I go? I got rid of myself. It's really insane time that we're in. It's really freaking scary. But I'm just glad to be in this fight with you all. And even if we don't win every single case, we're still gonna let them go down with us trying. And that's what matters.
Thank you. Armando and Grace.
No last words from me. Just wishing everybody luck in this ridiculous fight that we shouldn't really have to be in, but here we are.
Second.
Well, thank you both thank you all for your leadership. Reverend Hopkins, will you take us out with a benediction of sorts, please?
I want to echo what others have said about the importance of us being here together. It is a great blessing to be in the company of such powerful, peaceful warriors. It's an honor to be with y'all, and my gratitude to those who joined to witness this conversation. My heart goes out especially to Brandy and folks in Louisiana, as well as Allie, who is once again having to face the loss of one who has become beloved. We've all been through that experience in one way or another, and there is compassion to draw on in this space. And that peculiar sight that you may recognize in the sky at some point is that one pig that has learned to fly in Alabama. And we know it is possible to do the impossible. Everything is impossible until it's not. So as we struggle, knowing that we stand on the side of love and in the name of the sacred value of human life, let us move on in gratitude and faith and hope.
Thank you, Lynn. And Jeff had one more thing he wanted to say.
Yeah, Lynn, thank you. I just wanted to quickly say, one of the things I realized when I went and testified last week here in Arkansas is that the facts that are out there, the facts that are so-called facts, are most often absurd, but they're peddled as if they're facts. They're not true, but they're peddled as if they're facts. One of the things that we were told in Arkansas is that these nitrogen masks that are used during a nitrogen execution cost 3 cents. I seen one. There's no way that's true. We were told that going and getting a nitrogen execution was like going and getting one of your teeth pulled. You just drift off. I want us to remember That facts are funny things. They are immovable. Truth is immovable. And no matter what people tell you, no matter what bullshit lines they feed you, remember the truth. Remember who you are. Remember why we do this. And don't let anybody create any circumstance to make you second guess that life is worth fighting for.
Amen. Well, here's a picture of the mask. You can find this right here on the Death Penalty Action featured campaigns page, the petition on that. But this is the mask that they're talking about. It's a respirator that's normally used to protect somebody from toxic chemicals or toxic air or whatever. And they're reversing it and using that to fill it up and suffocate people. So we'll see what they end up doing in Louisiana if it doesn't get halted. And, you know, while I'm here, I'll just say this is where you can find other petitions to sign and how you can support Death Penalty Action and also support the organizations where you live. So with that, we got a busy month ahead. Hopefully it won't stay busy in April and May and on through the year, but it looks like it's going to be that way all year long. So we just have to stay in the fight and keep working. And with that, I want to say thank you all for being with us tonight and for sharing this with others. And thanks to everybody that showed up. I'm so grateful that we had people from Florida and Louisiana and Arizona and wherever else we had people from to come.
Arkansas, Oregon, Ohio.
Yes, well, lots of people in the audience too. So Death Penalty Action comes wherever we need to go to support local abolitionists who want to stand up and lift their voices to oppose executions. It's an honor for us to have groups like the ACLU and the United Methodist Church and others ask us to come and help them. And that's what we do. We help lift up the voices of people who want to say no to executions.